This
snack.
conference will now be recorded.
There's
So,
always, yeah, it's not good.
so when you go to eat, what I want you to do, I'm going to give everybody another tip for eating, okay? Sometimes what we do is we eat almost mindlessly, right? We kind of eat, we're not really thinking about it. We just kind of fill in this gap with food. So something that I think would be helpful is to practice mindful eating. So I don't know if some of you have heard of this before, but mindfulness is pretty popular. So you might have an idea of what mindfulness is, but mindfulness is basically paying full attention to what's going on in the moment or in the present. And one thing that can help you feel satiated by the food that you're going to could be to pay increased attention as you're eating. So I often practice this with, when I'm teaching it, I practice it with chocolate. So if you have a wrapped piece of chocolate, you can practice mindful eating from the moment you're holding that chocolate in your hands to the moment that you finish that chocolate. And you want to pay attention to, you want to engage all of your senses in that practice. So what does the chocolate feel like in your hand? What is the feel of the wrapper on the chocolate? Is it cold? Is it warm? When you unwrap the chocolate, what do you hear? When you open that up, what's the first aroma that you get? What do you smell? And then as you put it in your mouth, you don't want to kind of take too much at one time. You want to take a small bite and identify the flavors that come to mind. What are the sensations going on in your mouth? And you want to kind of just keep being mindful of these different sensations as they happen for you. And as you do that, you're going to become more satisfied. And it takes another benefit of this is it takes longer, right? It's not just popping a piece of chocolate in your mouth, not just popping a chip in your mouth and going on to the next one. It takes longer to pay attention to it. So you end up eating less and appreciating what you're eating more.
Mm-hmm. I'll try it.
Okay, great.
I'm going to try it tonight.
Great. You can always, if you do well with eating less, you can always also use this as a reward process for yourself. You know, that mindful eating at the end of a day where you've practiced eating less or going to food less, you can really enjoy it and feel satisfied as you do that.
Thank you. I'll try.
Great. Thank you for that question.
Dawn says mindful activities in general, especially with others.
Definitely.
And Danny says my dietitian teaches me this and it's very helpful. JD, let us know about some mindfulness and meditation services on Headspace.
Absolutely.
And also,
Teresa, let me jump in there for a second. I want to stress the importance of these apps and the things that are being offered. Just like this program is being offered, there are so many companies jumping in to do things for people who are struggling, and they're making them free. They're making them like everything's virtual now. You can look for free virtual yoga sessions, free virtual group exercise sessions that are hosted on one of these meeting websites. So I think that is super important to look for those resources, and Headspace is something that's great, and also utilizing different apps that are available. There's a lot of free apps like and other meditation apps. Even YouTube has free meditation and mindfulness activities that you could do, and those are all great resources that you can use for free. Sorry to cut you off.
No, that's okay. Earlier, Barbara mentioned having a lot of excess time, and with that time, she was able to make bigger meals and make more elaborate desserts, it seemed like. And I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about having that excess time and time management.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And that also ties into what we were just talking about too. Sometimes our go-to quick snacks that make us eat more are junk food, right? And if you're spending this time practicing, cooking or baking or things like that, it makes this activity much more enjoyable and engaging. So that's a great tip too as well in regards to the eating. So the other part of that was how do we fill up some of this free time, right? Is that right? So in terms of kind of increasing free time, increasing our utilization of free time, well, we do want to be able to find activities that make us, again, feel satisfied, but also feel productive, right? A lot of what might be going on for people is that they're not feeling productive, or they're not feeling like they're getting the things done that they should be getting done. One thing I encourage people to do is, if you feel like there's things that you want to be getting done during this time, you can one great thing to do is to make a list. Make a list of the things that you feel like you want to do, and try and cross them off as you do them. That's also going to provide you with a significant sense of accomplishment as you go through them, and it's going to feel very rewarding. But also, we also want to be careful to listen to ourselves during this time. When we don't feel productive, or when we see what everybody else is doing, it can be hard to feel like we're living up to the standards that everyone else is setting during this time. But I want to remind everyone that there's no set standard that everybody should be achieving at this time. You've got to listen to yourself. If you need to take a break, if you need some downtime, maybe this is a blessing in disguise. Maybe this is, a needed break for you. Or maybe it's a needed break that you needed to get stuff done, and that will help you. But really just listen to yourself and try to avoid any comparisons, but push yourself to do the things that you want to be doing. And a to-do list can really help with that, even if it's one thing per day. Just, I wanted to organize my closet. Make that your one thing for that day, and embrace that sense of accomplishment when that activity is done. Okay. So let's see, what was the next question there? Right, so Dawn said talking to friends and family might help for sure. Talking to friends and family is definitely a great way to connect with others and find a way to fill up some of that free time. Remember, there might be other people that are going through similar experiences as you, and they might want that connection as well. So finding some time to chat and some time to talk and connect with others can be really helpful. All right. All right. So guided meditations we talked about as being extremely helpful. So I want to encourage everyone to give that a shot. I think that relaxation is something that can be extremely important during this time. And if you haven't tried a guided meditation, it can really help with practicing mindfulness, and also taking a moment to stop and breathe throughout your day. There's a lot of things that can be overwhelming during this time, so you do want to be mindful of listening to yourself again, and just taking that time to take a break. So another question that was posed was that some of us are homeschooling and it's hard to get teens motivated to do schoolwork. They're missing friends and their activities. Are there any suggestions? So working with teens during this time, I'm sure, is extremely difficult, and getting someone to be motivated when I'm sure they're feeling very frustrated that they can't be with their friends, they can't enjoy school, especially those in high school, maybe in their senior year, feeling very, or even their junior year, feeling very frustrated that things have been canceled, like SATs and all of these things that they were looking forward to enjoying during their high school year, like prom, graduation. It can be very difficult for them to see past this. We need to keep that in mind. We need to try to take a second to put ourselves in their shoes and think about what they're feeling and what it's like to be a teen too, right? They can't see necessarily too far into the future. They're kind of in the moment, and that's sort of how they operate. So we need to be aware of that when we're addressing their concerns as well. I think one thing that could be really helpful for motivating a teen is to have an open conversation with them about what's going on and about their emotions. I think that they would be open to understanding what's going on if they understood the uncertainty that's associated with this. And it can be also a lesson for them as well in preparing for their future. So having an open conversation with them and also talking about the need to persevere through these times and how they can grow from this experience. If they realize that there's, I guess, what's the word for it? If there's a like a sort of like a consequence in a way for not being motivated, and how this could impact them down the road. It could be something that could help with the motivation. Also ensuring that they are finding ways to connect with friends and to have them find the support that they need through their friends. Activities is obviously harder because I'm sure teens really do want to be getting out and being active with their friends, with their peers, with their teammates. You know, given everything being canceled, those who play sports, those who are used to engaging in group activities, they might be lacking a big part of their identity. So that's something to keep in mind when discussing this with them as well. So finding a way to help them utilize the tools that they do have to stay connected and to find ways that they can still do the things that they enjoy. Because they might be feeling angry or frustrated, or maybe because they've lost their motivation, they may not be seeking out the opportunities that they do have to engage in the things that they want to be engaging in. Right. Hope that answered that question. So we got another question here. So how do you work through resistance and procrastination? So that's a great question. So this is kind of going back to what we were talking about before. I think resistance and procrastination it can be really difficult to overcome, especially when you're left to your own self, right? For many people, they might be by themselves, or they've been with the same one person for a while, or the same, family unit, and they haven't gotten out and seen other people. So it's easy to fall into complacency and negative routines. So overcoming resistance is really difficult when that happens. So one of the things that I would say in terms of well, let's talk about procrastination first, because then I think procrastination might be a little bit easier, and then we'll talk about resistance. So procrastination really relates to there's always another time for me to do this. There's always, you know, I could do this tomorrow. I don't have to do this right now. There's no sense of urgency right now for a lot of things. So again, going back to finding strategies that work for you. Lists is something that definitely always works for me. So I would encourage the use of lists so that you do kind of feel accountable. Getting into a routine helps with procrastination. So a lot of us have lost our routines, and maybe there's been a lack of need to like get things done by a certain time. So when you create this routine, something you can also establish is sort of like a schedule. Like, so right now we're kind of living week by week, or realistically 2 weeks by 2 weeks if we're going by the news and what we're listening to from our government. If you plan out the next 2 weeks because you know you're still going to be home and in the same routine, you can plan out 2 weeks, make a list of things that you want to get done, and write them down in the schedule. Now the other question is, how do you then hold yourself accountable for actually following through with that? Is there something that could be a reward for you? Is there something that can be fulfilling if you do get those things done? So that's something to think about. Also, finding your own motivations is important. You know, why do you want to do these things? What's the reason for getting it done? And it doesn't necessarily need to be an external deadline. It can be an internal, personal reason that you want that thing to be done. And the good part about that is those are always more rewarding when they're accomplished. When the need for it to be done comes from within you, those are the best, that's the best feeling. So resistance is a little more tricky. And when I think of resistance, I'm not sure if I'm addressing what the way that it's written in the question, but I'm thinking of like almost like an opposition. And I'm wondering if there's a way for us to overcome our own opposition to things. So overcoming our own opposition, again, is really figuring out why are we opposed to doing that. We can think about what makes us opposed to doing that or resistant to doing that, then we can make the progress because we're addressing whatever it is that's causing that to happen in the first place. So for example, say you want to start an exercise routine, right? And you can't seem to get yourself started because you're feeling like, why bother? Why, like, I don't want to do this. But in reality, if you decided to do an exercise routine, there really was a motivation to begin with, right? So finding out what it is that stops you from going through with that. What is it that is not appealing about proceeding with the exercise routine? Is it because the couch and the TV is more appealing? And if so, is there a way to incorporate the couch and the TV into your exercise routine? So maybe it's about finding a way to balance the things that you want to push yourself to do with the things that you're inclined to do. And that can reduce the resistance. And once you find yourself making strides with that, you can really then propel yourself into going bigger, so to speak, after that. All right.
I really appreciate that, Professor Brady, kind of meeting yourself where you're at and really working with what you have at hand and allowing yourself to build on that instead of making this great stride towards something that's so far away from where you're at right then. You're taking the smaller steps with yourself. I really appreciated that.
Okay, great.
I have a couple of questions in the comments. Would you like me to read them?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, they're comments in the comments.
Okay. Sure.
JD says, the hardest part of this time is feeling like my life is on hold. Friends' weddings have been canceled, vacations, promotions at work. What's the best way to deal with ongoing disappointment?
Oh, yeah, definitely. That is probably one of the hardest parts of all of this. So there's, to me, two of the hardest parts is the uncertainty and all the things that come with that. So the anxiety, the fear, and all of those things that come with the actual pandemic that's going on. But then the second part of this is like all of this stuff that just no longer is, which is super challenging for us to cope with. And I think the thing I would want to stress here is working on acceptance, right? Acceptance is not the easiest thing to talk about, right? We don't want to accept that we can't go on that vacation, or we don't want to accept that these things are canceled and we've missed out on things in our lives. But at the same time, the more that we resist acceptance of that, the harder of a toll it takes on our mental well-being. So we have to weigh out this option, right? So it's kind of like a balance. If I asked, what could you do about it? In most situations, the answer would be, well, really nothing, because we're being told to stay home, or we're being told that we can't go out and do these things. So the next question is, so what do you do about the fact that you can't do anything, right? That's actually a powerful question. It's what do you do with nothing? And you want to ask yourself that instead of getting stuck on the first question. You want to ask yourself, instead of just staying stuck in this feeling of I'm helpless and I'm hopeless about these things being missed out on. Okay, so I've missed my friend's wedding. What can I do being that happened, right? Maybe it's about creating a nice gift for them during this extra time, or finding a way to connect with them virtually, or planning a date for the future when this is all over to go out and celebrate this union. Or I think one of the other examples was a promotion, right? So maybe that was something that you really desperately needed, right? Finances are tight. The economy is in a rough place right now, and we don't necessarily have control over changing that right now. So I think something to think about is, well, how do you address that by thinking, what are you going to do to make that happen down the road? Or what changes can you make so that you can put yourself in the best position to have a better opportunity in the future? It's about how do you make the most of what you don't have, right? And I think that it's a shift for sure, but it's a difficult shift, but it's definitely a doable shift. Something that I talk about a lot, and I don't know if anybody has heard of this before, but when we get stuck in, and I apologize to my students because I've been talking about this ad nauseum lately, but when we get stuck focusing on the bad things, I encourage you to turn to gratitude. So it's so easy to rattle off a list of the things that we're missing out on, the things that we don't have, the things that we, can't do, the things that are no longer happening at all. Turn to the things that are happening. Turn to the things that we do have. Turn to the things that you do have control over. The biggest benefit there is you don't get stuck in the negative cycle that can turn into depression, right? You want to offset these negative things. You give the negative things a moment, but you spend time focusing on the positive, right? So there's a couple of different ways to practice gratitude. And then we had talked about this in our last group, but I'll go over some of them briefly. The first one is a gratitude journal. And I think gratitude journals are super helpful. They're super easy. It's about taking a few minutes just to identify 3 to 5 things each day that you're grateful for or that were good that day. And try not to repeat them so that it keeps pushing you to find new things that are helpful and positive. And then another thing that I've recently been trying out is a photo gratitude journal. So there's 2 different ways to do that. You can snap a photo of something you're appreciative of each day, and then this way you have a memento to go back and look at. When you're feeling negative or you're feeling down, you can go back and take a look at those images. And what I've been doing during this time is I've been taking a photo journal of springtime coming and focusing on the fact that no one can shut Mother Nature down, and spring and summer is coming no matter what we do. So I've taken a picture of my favorite tree every day since the first day that I didn't have to go to work and work from home. And I've watched this tree go from sticks to blooms to now turning into leaves, and it's been a really awesome experience to kind of go back. Sometime last week I put it into a slideshow with some music and watched it, and it was really nice, and it made me really happy for a couple of minutes. So these are all ways that you can kind of offset these negative feelings that you're experiencing.
Gloria says that she has a new appreciation of nature.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one thing we can't avoid right now, right? We have all the time to kind of appreciate it, to look at it, to experience it. Like I was thinking the other day as I was sitting outside on one of these very few nice days where you could sit outside for a few minutes, and just like I looked at the leaves budding on a tree, and I was like, wow, I don't know if I've ever did this before. So we can kind of find we can find those moments where we appreciate that a lot of things happen when we're not paying attention. And I think that that's an important message to learn, I think, through all of this too, is that we have the opportunity to now soak in all of these things, because everything is happening so slowly for many of us that, what are the things that you never realized before? I don't know. For me, I realized that one day in May, I realized that we went from bare trees in December to full blown leaves on the trees. So I realized that I'd never paid attention to that before. And that's been kind of a nice thing to actually take in and to appreciate and to spend time with. When we take time for the good things that are happening, it just really changes and shifts our whole mood.
Dawn says, whatever we do, we should do with intention.
I love that. Intention is so important. And, I think being more intentional about life is something that we can all benefit from coming out of this. I saw a post on social media somewhere that was like, I'm going to enjoy the first hug that I have with the person that I see more than I've ever enjoyed a hug before in my life. And I think that speaks to how much we don't intentionally do things in life. And any sort of hug, embrace, or just any sort of moment should be done with purpose and with intention. And the things that we do in life, the things that we're being so careful to reach out to people now. And when I say careful, I don't mean cautious. I mean, we're doing it purposefully. We're connecting. I mean, people have done like Zoom happy hours more than they went to real happy hours. So people are being more intentional about connecting. And I think that that's something we need to focus on continuing with even after this is over. I hope that intentionality sticks around. Teresa, is there anything that I'm missing that you want to add or jump in with?
I'm just wondering if anyone else in the chat has any of the grateful or intentional activities that we've been talking about. Professor Brady, I love yours of taking the photo of the one tree, and Gloria mentioning just like really appreciating nature. I was wondering if anybody else here has anything that they do that helps them stay in gratefulness. Sorry, I was on mute. Dawn says, sharing on Facebook what I'm grateful for.
Absolutely. The social media and the fact that we have this available to us now is really great. And I think that people are shifting to a more positive outlook. Maybe I'm just paying attention to the negative less, but I think that it's nice to kind of see the positive things coming out on social media right now.
I agree. Doug says, I've really been able to appreciate walking my dog while listening to music.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's fantastic. Music is something that's so important for many of us, and it can be really healing too. So music in general is something that we can use more of during this time for sure. And also music increases productivity. It makes us happier, it makes us more energetic, and can really uplift our mood, which I think I repeated. But listening to music, and then also our pets are so important to us. There's a great connection that we can have during this time. They make us feel good. They're our companion. They know when we're upset, they know when we're happy, and they know how to make us happy and how to bring us joy. So that's something that's really awesome. One of the things that I was thinking about was how upset our pets are going to be when we have to go back to normal life. And maybe that's something, tying in intentionality is maybe that's something that we need to be more mindful of. How do we appreciate that time that we have with our pets? Like if it's something that we are utilizing as a coping now, that could be something that we really more intentional about down the road.
I love Gloria's comment about how she's been making rainbows for the neighborhood kids. I know a lot of people have been doing that to spread positivity for elementary school kids and solidarity with elementary school kids. I've been seeing them around my neighborhood as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's really nice to have these messages of hope that we can share. So that's something that's really awesome. And Gloria, I'm so glad that you've been doing that, and that brings you a feeling of hope and positivity and hopefully intentionality, right? So I was just popped into the chat, and Karia said she also thought about how pets will react when we go back. I'm really sad. So we do need to be mindful of that.
I just wanted to remind the group that if possible, try and turn your mics off if you're not joining in the chat. The echo makes it hard for some of us to hear.
Thanks, Teresa. So we have about 5 more minutes before we start wrapping up. I want to hear from you if there's any more questions or if there's any follow-up thoughts to what you've heard today and how you're feeling now that these things have sort of been talked about.
I just want to ask you, people are saying, keep with your routine when you go to work. Now, I go to bed like 9:30, 10. I get up at 5. I don't want to do that now because I don't have to get up at 5. But
Right.
so I'm staying up late and I'm eating.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go to bed at 9:30, 10. You know, it's tough because
Mm-hmm.
I'm more of a night owl. So
Right. I think a good thing to focus on there is definitely the maintaining the same amount that you sleep. You know, it's really, our biological clocks are so strong, and it's really important for us to keep our bodies on a schedule so that it's not really hard when we have to readjust. So if you're used to sleeping, so you said 9:30 to 5, so 7.5 hours. If you are sleeping 7.5 hours now, you really want to try to keep it to 7.5 hours. So sometimes what that might mean is just setting, if you go to sleep later, then you want to set the alarm, like an alarm, so that you're not sleeping more than 7.5 hours, so that your body can readjust just at a different time later on. And then you said when you do stay up late, that's when you go for some food. So maybe there's something you could do before that time that could help with keeping you more occupied. So something that I encourage people to do if they're struggling with eating later is having a very a healthy snack at a reasonable time. So instead of, you know, having cookies and ice cream at 11, try and have something more healthy, but that will keep you feeling a little full, maybe at like 8 o'clock, like a little after dinner snack that should get you through to when you go to bed. That's something that you could do. And then this way you're less likely to go for something bad too late. And also finding a routine before bed is also something that's important. So if you know that you need to fill up your time before bed, how do you start to wind down? I look at it like winding down actively. So taking an active role in the process before you go to bed. So for example, I stop any, it's been harder lately, but phone and computer use at least 1 hour before bed. I try to avoid television before bed. You want to avoid anything that's going to necessarily stimulate your mind actively, but find something that can calm you more. So practicing something like meditation, or maybe doing an evening light yoga or stretching routine that you can do. Something that keeps you occupied, but yet starts to wind you down, can be helpful and can help you avoid those dangerous pitfalls. Now remember, another thing you can do, if something in your routine isn't working for you during these times, try to change the order of the routine. So something that could be helpful for people who maybe are struggling with what to do at night. Maybe it's about moving some exercise to the nighttime if you're used to doing it in the morning, because maybe that'll fill up that time that you're struggling with something that you already like. Or if you know, normally read during the day, maybe you read later at night. Make it work for you. Or, you know, for some people, maybe they've always wanted to be a morning exerciser and now they have free time in the morning. Maybe it's about moving that up. You can play around with your schedule and your routine. You just want to make sure that it's working best for you. You don't want to add any more pressure by trying to force something that's not working. I always talk about being kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. If it's not working, change it up. You know, your main goal is to keep yourself happy, active, and healthy right now. So whatever you need to do that is what you should focus on. Tracy, you want to add anything to that?
I did. I know that you mentioned this a little earlier, but I know for some people, despite this being as difficult as it is being the pandemic that it is, people are calling it the great pause that they needed in their life. And it sounds like you're waking up at 5 a.m. That's probably a pretty big stressor to have to do every day. And now you get a break from it. And keeping your routine, like Professor Brady said earlier, is important, but shifting those hours, maintaining the hours that you have sleeping and adjusting it. But for me personally, I'm just allowing my body to unwind and relax and reset while also maintaining some sort of routine that doesn't allow me to get a little too unraveled. So that's really what I lean into. It's just the great pause that I know I have needed and that a lot of my colleagues and friends and family have needed. So I hope you can find some sort of rest in the pause that we have.
Dawn put in the chat, and I love this tip. This is very clever. Brushing and flossing helps her not to snack. That's a good idea. Maybe, you know, finding the things that make you avoid, you know, eating. So if you brush your teeth at 9 o'clock, but you know you're gonna stay up for 2 hours, maybe you are like, I don't want to have to brush my teeth again before bed. So maybe that could be something that is an aversion to going to food for a snack at night. It's a great idea.
Doug says that he likes the idea of keeping a routine, but within reason. And
Definitely.
Gloria emphasizes that we are recharging.
Yes, for sure. So I like the within reason part, right? It just goes back to like, there's no set standards, right? There's no reason for us to need to be our own worst critic right now. We can just kind of take this time in, you know, and just ride the wave. This is a very difficult time, and you have to allow yourself to understand it as a very difficult time. So I like the fact that within reason gives you some wiggle room to also, you know, if it's a crummy day outside and you want to lay down on the couch for 12 hours and watch Netflix, then do that. You know, there's no necessarily there's no standard that you need to be holding yourself to each day. And that made me think of something that I would love to kind of end off on is be your own cheerleader. Identify your own successes for that day. You know, be appreciative of the work that you're doing for yourself, and you know, be proud of yourself. You don't need anybody around you for there to be pride for what you're doing. Nobody needs to see what you're doing for there to be pride associated with it. You can be proud of what you're doing each day. And if that is as simple as I got out of my pajamas today, or I got out of bed, I brushed my hair, then so be it. That's fine. That's something to be proud of. You know, just it's whatever works for you. It's whatever you need. And this is a time of celebrating yourself. There's no need to beat yourself up even further. We got enough stuff going on outside the walls of our house that, you know, we don't need to bring it inside too. We can be positive within our homes, and we can be focused on our strengths, focus on what we are doing, and focus on what's going well for us. So go ahead.
Dawn says to be proud for logging on tonight, and I agree.
Yes, that's a great point, Dawn. Thank you. Yes, you should all be proud of yourself for coming here. You all reached out to connect. You all participated and hopefully got some great information. And whatever it was that was calling you here, you were fulfilled by that. So be proud of yourself for taking that step for you. And I know that some people feel very worried about coming into these groups. Maybe it's new for them. Maybe they don't feel so secure about the technology part of that. But absolutely, you should celebrate the fact that you came here today and did something good for yourself. So just as we, just before we kind of end and say goodbye, I do want to just kind of put this back up here. If anybody needs any assistance, or you know of anybody who needs any assistance, we are here to help. We are actively, you know, working with community members, providing mental health and wellness services. So please feel free to reach out or share our information with anybody who may be struggling or having a difficult time and needs to talk to somebody. We are here to help. And with that, it's 8 o'clock. I want to say thank you all for coming, and I really appreciate the support and being able to connect with all of you.
Thank you so much.
Anne. And thank you on behalf of Oceanside Library to Molloy. You guys are fantastic, and this was a wonderfully run program. Thank you so much, guys, for bringing this to the community.
Thank you so much. We look forward to a next one, hopefully.
Okay.
Yes, definitely. Look out in our calendar. We're always willing to partner with you guys. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Have a great night, everyone. See you soon. Bye-bye. All right, and Kellyanne, I'm going to end the recording and then I'll send it to you.
Perfect. Thank you.